All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Mainely Hoops podcast. If you're enjoying our content, please make sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate your support. But we're diving into another Players Era game here, Gonzaga and Bama in Las Vegas. Cody, let's hear your initial thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, probably my number one game of the Monday slate at the very least. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how some of these teams respond off of the performances that they've had. Obviously Alabama's been battle tested throughout this entire season so far. But Gonzaga, they've been tested as well. I mean, they played 3 power conference teams and handled business, but I thought they were they had significant matchup edges over them, particularly on the interior against Oklahoma and Creighton. They were able to kind of run away in those games. But the defense has also been awesome for Gonzaga so far this season. I think they're up to third in adjusted defense in KenPom right now. And, it just looks like a different Mark Few team in terms of how they're playing, particularly on the defensive end. And I guess the real question is how real is this defense playing against elite competition? I think I kind of need to see it against a national contender, and you're going to be in it's a really tough matchup against the perimeter offense of Alabama. They've been a tough matchup for everyone all season long. And, I think the biggest thing defensively is, can Gonzaga's aggressive ball screen coverage hold up against these Bama elite guards? I think Graham Ike and Braden Huff are going to have their hands full when they're playing at the level and the high hedging against Phylon and Holloway. How easily are Phylon and Holloway going to be able to navigate around that and find off-ball shooters? I mean, Gonzaga's been giving up their share of catch and shoot threes this season. So guys like Wrightsil, Amari Allen, and other guys, even when a Holloway's playing off the ball, how well are they going to be able to defend those guys in space? But obviously they've been awesome this year. They forced turnovers at an extremely high clip. They protected the rim at a high level. It's just Ike and Huff haven't been dominant rim protectors throughout their entire career. So I think I kind of need to see it against one of the elite offenses in the country in Alabama. And for Alabama, I think it comes down to, what does their front court rotation look like here in this game? Are we going to see more Aiden Sherrill, Noah Williamson? Are we going to see those bigger lineups from them, or are we going to see the more positionless big men in a Keaton Bristow, Taylor Bull Bowen front court like we saw against Illinois? And they gave Illinois some issues, and particularly in their ball screen coverage. They took away what Illinois wants to do most, and exploit mismatches out of pick and roll. And Bama was did a fantastic job defending in space. It's obviously going to be a tougher situation here. If you're going to switch pick and roll, I think Gonzaga can kind of take advantage in the post up game on the interior. Ike handling and in the post against smaller defenders, I think is going to give Bama a tough time. They're going to have to send 2 to the ball and be at the mercy of the Gonzaga off ball shooting. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a chess match between both of these coaches. What Bama does defensively, and how Gonzaga also navigates defensively against these elite Bama guards.
Yeah, some great points. We talked about it in the week 3 review, but Bama, it seems like, is kind of going through a gauntlet here of tough competition. But Marcus, we're going to send it over to you. What are your initial thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit different of a matchup, right, than the Illinois one, with those interior players of Ike and Huff, just in the sense that, right, Tomislav came off the bench for Illinois in that game. He wasn't really healthy. He didn't really give them. He played 15 minutes, 3 points. They didn't really play through him at all. It's a different story in this game. Same thing with Big Z at Illinois. He wants to just stand out on the perimeter and shoot threes and be a guard. So in this case against Gonzaga, it's a little bit different because you have 2 guys that are very comfortable and would rather go down on the block and play post up game. So like you said, seeing how they defend the pick and roll game, and then even like you said, the big man rotation. I just don't. We've had our issues with the Alabama front court, and I just don't really trust them against the EK Huff duo. They're just efficient guys down there on the block. They're experienced. Especially EK now. He's in year 5 or 6. He's a physical guy. He's going to be able to, I think, have his way down there. He should have a big game against this Alabama front court. For me, like the biggest thing to monitor, I think, is how, like you mentioned, Gonzaga defends these guys. Because the rim protection of Gonzaga isn't fantastic. Alabama wants to just get it and go, put a lot of pressure on you, put a lot of pressure on the rim, but at the same time have a lot of shooters to spray it out to. It's really it's a tough cover, I think, when you're going to be playing Braden Huff and Graham Ike together. Like you mentioned, the chess match. Are we going to see maybe like a smaller lineup from Alabama that really puts Gonzaga's defense on its heels? I think that's going to be something interesting to monitor. So, I just it's really going to come down to the defenses, I think. Both offenses are fantastic. Obviously, Gonzaga's defense has been really good up to this point, turning teams over. That's really all it is to it. It's two great offenses, two decent. Like Alabama's not a great defense, Gonzaga is. But it's an interesting matchup for Gonzaga on the defensive end.
Yeah, absolutely. Cody, what are the keys to the game for Alabama to come out of here with a win? They're a bit of an underdog, as Vegas says, but I think it's a pretty even matchup. Cody, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's going to be such an up and down matchup that I think a lot of things can happen. There's going to be a lot of swings, momentum-wise throughout the course of this game. But I think for Bama, it's just find ways to put the Zags defense at a disadvantage, put some pressure on Graham Ike and Braden Huff in space. And I think they're going to be able to do that. And if Philon's able to attack this defense downhill and find his shooters in Wrightsell and Holloway, I think Alabama's going to be in a pretty good spot here. Though Gonzaga hasn't, they've been fairly fortunate, I guess, guarding the three. And I think they've contested it at a pretty high level with these wing athletes and Ty and Grant Foster, Emmanuel Innocenti, and Jalen Worley. They've kind of changed the dynamic of this defense truly. I don't really think it's been how great the front court has been. I think it's been more of those wing athletes, but I still think they're gettable in some aspects. And Bama obviously has to hit threes at a high clip. I think they're a little bit more shot making reliant than they have been in past years. They haven't got to the free throw line as much this year. They haven't got on the offensive glass as much. So these guards are going to have to be great, as they're going to have to be great all year long. And then one other area is like potentially force some turnovers against this Gonzaga team. These Gonzaga guards haven't been truly tested from a pressure standpoint, and Nate Oates has kind of ramped the pressure up with this defense. When he's been playing a little bit smaller with guys like Bristow and Bull Bowen in the front court, they've been a little bit more aggressive. They're sending two to the ball more often, and I think they're going to have to do that in this game. Like when the ball is put inside to Huff and Ike, they're going to have to send a second guy, and it's just a matter of how the Alabama wing athletes and guys like Amari Allen and when Davion Hannah is in this game as well. I think those guys are going to be crucial defensive pieces in this game, as well as Latrell Wrightsell. I know he's probably a step behind defensively than what he has been in past years just due to the Achilles injury and still trying to get back to 100%. But he's also another really key defender here. And I wouldn't call these Gonzaga wing options as like elite off-ball shooting options. Like I'd say Adam Miller is probably the best one, and he's shooting at 33% so far this season. So I do think there are paths for Bama to win. They can't get smoked on the interior or get smoked on the glass in this game, and they definitely do need to make shots. So there's a lot of things that they need to do, but I definitely think they're capable.
Yeah, Marcus, what are Gonzaga's keys to the game? Let's hear it.
Yeah, even though Gonzaga likes to play a fast pace, right? They're 48th in tempo. Like Bama is at kind of like another level. In the top 10, they really want to go, even more than Gonzaga. I think it's important that Gonzaga can control the pace a little bit here. And what I mean by that is like when they're in the half court, right? Like really kind of putting Alabama's defense in a disadvantage, right? With their bigs, getting them into switch situations, putting their front court in tough situations in the post, and making them have to make decisions, right? If they're going to double EK, which they never do. And Nate Oates' defense rarely does. So I think just making them have to make decisions in the half court defensively. And then out of that, right, I think if they can control the offensive or really the boards in general, which they should. I mean, Alabama's outside the top 170 in both offensive and defensive rebound rate, and Gonzaga is inside the top 35 in both. I think Gonzaga should have definite success on the offensive glass in this matchup. I think that's something really to monitor, because like the Gonzaga off-ball shooting hasn't been, like, it was a concern coming into the year. It's not fantastic, but if they're able to create second, third, fourth opportunities, that's where Alabama's going to get themselves in trouble, and Gonzaga is going to put themselves in a good spot to win this game. And then I think the last couple things, forced turnovers. Like they have shown to be able to do. Obviously, this is an Alabama team with great guards that take care of the basketball up to this point. But I think it's an area where they can have some success. And then on the other side, like, limit their turnovers and limit transition opportunities for Alabama, right? This is an Alabama team that just wants to go. Get downhill, put a lot of pressure on the rim. You need to really limit those transition opportunities if you want to have success against this Alabama team, right? They're running hot. They've got a couple of really big wins here early in the season. They went toe-to-toe, with Purdue as well. So, they're playing good basketball without a doubt. I mean, so is Gonzaga, but, they need to limit the hot Alabama team.
Yeah, I completely agree. That was a great point you made, that they both kind of tend to play fast, but I do think playing fast kind of plays more in favor of Bama. So I think Gonzaga needs to slow it down a little bit, play more half court. They've got the size. But transitioning from that, we got the pick. So, Cody, who do you like coming out of this matchup with a win? Gonzaga's favored a bit, -4.5, but let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I've been kind of back and forth on this one, but ultimately I went with Gonzaga. I just think they can dominate the interior a little bit too much in this game. Like, if Bama's going to play more Bristow and Aiden Sherrill and Williamson aren't able to stay on the floor, I do think it's going to be a really big advantage for EK and Huff, because I also think those two guys are really good passers when a second guy is sent to the ball. And ultimately, I will trust these Gonzaga wing options enough to knock down shots or attack closeouts to score at the rim at a high level. And, I think they're going to be able to control pace a little bit more because of their rebounding edge. They're among the elites in both offensive rebounding rate and defensive rebounding rate. So I do think that ultimately ends up being the difference. I'm also a believer in the Gonzaga backcourt group of Mario St. Superi and Braden Smith. So I will take Gonzaga to win this game. I think there's going to be a lot of swings throughout this game. It's going to look like one team's going to break away, but both teams are going to have a lot of fight in this game. But I will take Gonzaga to win 84-81.
All right, Marcus, let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm going to take Gonzaga here as well. I think they can just expose some things on Alabama, just with their experience. I think EK especially can kind of have his way with the Alabama front court. I think they're going to be able to limit some of the big advantage transition opportunities that Alabama likes to create. And I think they're going to be able to turn them over enough to make a difference. And ultimately, they're going to come out with the win. They're going to control the glass for sure, as I alluded to a few minutes ago. So I'm going to take Gonzaga to win this game. I'm going to say they win by 8. I'm going to say 83-75.
Well, it's a clean sweep for Mainely Hoops because I'm going with Gonzaga as well. I think they control the pace. They dominate the boards. I'm going with 83-78. So pretty similar scores all the way around, but we're looking forward to it. As always, thank you for listening to the Mainely Hoops podcast.